Senhores e senhores, pioneiros de open banking, bem-vindos. At least I tried. A very warm welcome to everybody, and thank you for joining our campfire. Breaking barriers even in the era of open banking in Brazil. Breaking barriers indeed, and at an incredible pace. Already partway through the implementation phase, which will deliver the biggest change to date, the regulation of payment initiation on any online platform. That is the ability to pay for a product or service using Pix without entering a banking app. Then in 2022, we have the implementation of payments through bank transfers. Now, just for our community outside of Brazil, Pix celebrated 1 year of operation on the 16th of November. And according to the Central Bank of Brazil, it is the most used payment method in the country. And as the breakneck pace continues, with phase 4 due to start on the 15th of December, really, this is the beginning of our Brazilian familia embracing open finance, with the access to data from insurance, investment, foreign exchange, and private pensions. This is the fastest adoption pace of any country ever. Already, there are 114 institutions, that's banks, payments institutions, credit unions, and FinTechs, and other authorized organizations participating in creating the open banking ecosystem. It is just phenomenal. Now, the industry around the world is watching what is happening in Brazil, and we are seeing that just in the amount of media coverage this campfire has received and our inbound inquiries. So I would like to thank all our friends in the press, and I can see from the registrations that some of them have tuned in as well, so thank you. Everybody in the ecosystem should be incredibly proud of the infrastructure that is being built, the legacy, and the difference that it's making to real lives. It must be exhausting, and I'm sure everybody is ready for the festival season. And talking of celebrations, of course, when we get that first open banking payment, we will celebrate it. We really will shout about it aloud to all of our global community. So for now, let's take some time out to learn and to inspire. Our campfire today is in 3 parts. I have a fireside chat with Steve from Finicity. He's the co-founder, the foundations of which are built around financial inclusion. And we know that plays a huge part in the Brazilian agenda. So I'm looking forward to lessons that he wants to share and his insights from around the world. Then with 2 panels, one in English and one in Portuguese. Both will be released with subtitles. With the world watching and wanting, as we heard from the press coverage that I was talking about, to hear from Brazil, you told us that a mix of languages would help us fly your flag and, importantly, us all to have the industry debate. And I have to say that I am then thrilled to be joined by 2 amazing female hosts, Isabella Silvala from the DIT and Adelene Etherman-Burr, who is the MD of Accenture, who will be talking to our panel of experts. Now, all of them are involved right now implementing open banking in Brazil. So I would urge you to ask them questions, get involved, and be heard. And you can ask the questions on Slido. You can also see at the side of your screen a poll that we're running on Slido. And we'll be sharing the results of that on social media. Okay, let's get started. It gives me enormous pleasure to introduce you all to Steve Smith, the co-founder and CEO of Finicity, a MasterCard company. Hi, Steve. Welcome to our campfire.
Helen, it's great to be here. This is an exciting day and absolutely an exciting topic, and really excited to be a part of it.
Thank you. So before we deep dive into talking about Brazil, for our global community, I'd like to set the scene with your help and look at the bigger picture. So we get the context, and it will just underscore the phenomenal achievements to date in Brazil, the size of the opportunity and the potential game-changing effects on people's lives and creating a more inclusive society. So let's jump straight in. Okay, so Steve, I'm really curious now. What is the current state of open banking around the world? And let's look, and it's always about the use cases. So let's look at those use cases and the benefits. So open banking around the world and use cases and the benefits, Steve.
Yeah, so it's interesting if we, as we take a look, and of course, as part of MasterCard, we're looking at activity in every part of the globe. MasterCard is engaged in 200 countries. Open banking right now, there's some level of activity associated with open banking or the open financial data network development, either from an industry perspective or a regulatory perspective in some 60 countries. And the level of interest outside of those 60 countries is significant as well. And so right now there's a lot of inbound questions and dialogue from countries that haven't yet started down a path of creating a framework or starting to facilitate the process. If you take a look at the kind of the two central areas that have at least to date let out in open banking, you still have the US and Canada that are largely a laissez-faire, industry-driven approach, yet the central regulatory body, the CFPB, is now actively engaged in looking at rulemaking around the framework of Dodd-Frank 1033, which is really the framework that suggests data should be open and it should be shared and it should be consumers and businesses should be able to permission access to that data to be used for their purposes. And so in those markets, you have industry-led approaches with organizations working together with banks to stand up, technology, best-in-class technology, and working to get to a place where we drive friction out of the process. In Europe, where obviously there's been significant leadership, it's been much more of a regulation first approach, and adoption has lagged a bit behind what you've seen in the US in terms of absolute adoption of use case and innovation on top. That said, the pace of innovation is picking up at a remarkable level now in the UK, led primarily in the UK and spreading across Europe as banks and FinTechs are creating those integrations, and the technology is being stood up at a higher level of quality and capability, and so anticipate that while adoption has lagged, and I think we've talked a bit about that before, the pace of adoption is really moving now, and I believe that it will continue to accelerate. So then you take a look at what's happening elsewhere in Latin America, and especially we're talking about Brazil today, and it is breathtaking, honestly, to see the pace of regulatory framework development, standard development, and what we believe will be adoption at a significantly faster pace than we've seen in some of the other leading areas around the world. So.
Breathtaking, it certainly is. Thank you for that. So, which is a lovely segue into the next question that I want us to look at. So everybody here is keen to know and to learn. And on our last campfire, our students from the Central Bank of Brazil told us that they had looked at the UK for lessons learned, and that had accelerated the adoption that you've just been talking about, Steve. So I'm keen to hear from you some of the key challenges that have already been overcome, and what would you say are the key learnings? So your wise counsel to share with the Brazilian market, please.
Yeah, so the challenge here is that the opportunity is this open ecosystem that we all talk about, and the innovation that is driven on top of that ecosystem, and ultimately the empowerment and value that drives to consumers and businesses. We're seeing in the US, for example, 70 million consumers, engaging in open banking products, services, and solutions on a daily basis, and scores of businesses now facilitating at least a part of their economic, their business stack on top of an open banking kind of framework. The opportunity that exists clearly is phenomenal in terms of expanding credit, providing access to real and meaningful products, facilitating additional choice around payments, and really putting the power of data in the hands of individuals that and businesses that have struggled to have the access to full data in the past. The challenge is that this is all very new. We're in the early innings. Even as we talk about adoption at pace, we still are really at the early innings. So how do we really create interoperable standards and stand up technology, both at the value added side of the stack, as well as the data access side of the stack, and the API server technology. And I can tell you that it doesn't matter whether you're in an industry-driven environment or a regulatory-driven environment, the technological challenges are the same. It's all new, creating teams around building that technology, doing it best of class, creating solutions that allow for rapid registration, and deliver 4 nines of uptime and the capacity necessary to drive these solutions at scale is a real challenge. And I think that the opportunity is for organizations to really look for partnerships with those that have been there, have done that, and can provide insights to help them get through that curve much more quickly and much more cost effectively than has been the case with many organizations both in Europe and in the US, and a lot of hard lessons learned in trying to get to that place over the course of 2 to 3 years.
Interesting you say about partnerships, because OBE is all around collaboration. So I actually believe that for this ecosystem to really thrive, I agree with you that it is about that collaborative partnership approach. And another time, I would love to talk to you more around interoperability. But just to go back to interoperability, would you say there's any key learnings that you would like to share on that? Because that is absolutely key, isn't it, for the massive adoption?
Yeah, Helen, you think about interoperability, and you talk about open banking, and you get to the notion of, well, okay, so we create an integration, but it's much deeper than that. It's an integration that delivers what? How many data elements? How is that data configured? What's the period? What's the length of time over which data is delivered, right? What's the history that's actually delivered? If you think about some of the use cases like underwriting, is yesterday's data sufficient, or do you need 90 days of data to create an appropriate cash flow view? These are the kinds of things that we get into. It's like, yes, on the one hand, you say open it up and provide the data, but there are lots of questions around what that data looks like, how it flows, what are the types, data elements types, and configurations of data. And that's where standards come in, and we create true interoperability. If you think about this, the open financial data network at its very best, it means that it doesn't matter where I am as an individual in the world. I can go cross-border, I can go anywhere in the world, and my data flows consistently with me, and it doesn't matter whether I apply for a loan in a new country as a new student, or or back in my home state. It all should be relatively consistent. And so not only do we have that challenge just within country, but I think that we have that challenge, and frankly that opportunity, because if you think about what that creates on a global scale, cross-border, in a truly open financial data network ecosystem, there's a lot of work ahead, a lot of opportunity for us to collaborate and create goodness from this incredible innovation that is open banking.
So cross-border opportunities is a lovely segue into my last and final question. Just it's crystal ball gazing time now. So what are the up and coming opportunities? We've just touched on them, and that phenomenal opportunity for global growth. But what are the up and coming opportunities that have yet to come in the next 18 to 20 months? What would your forecast be, Steve?
Yeah, I think that when I look at this, I look at the advancement of again, additional payment options and solutions, being able to truly, have your data, accessible to multiple value-add third-party solutions. Frankly, to open up the credit envelope and to create consistency across, credit underwriting from a cash flow perspective. Now we did some early evaluation of if in fact you could gain access to 90 days of financial transaction history, how many people in the world could you underwrite in a consistent way? And a year and a half ago, that number was about 3.2 billion. So if you truly look crystal ball and you say, well, the ecosystem, the open financial data ecosystem that is, open banking in different contexts and different views, if in fact we are successful as a financial services industry worldwide, we can get to the place, we truly could get to the place in the next half decade to decade where we're truly able to lift economies at the base level, because we're able to provide data in meaningful ways, value-added products, services, and solutions that allow financial services providers to provide those services in a meaningful way to a much greater number of people, and in a relatively consistent format. And that's exciting when you think about really the growth and economic development that powers, and the innovation that's driven on top of that.
Thank you. It is the innovation that is exciting, and we're seeing a lot of that coming out of Brazil right now. Steve, sadly, we've come to the end, but I would love to talk again sometime. So thank you very, very much for kicking off our campfire. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Steve.
Always great to be together, Helen.
And hopefully one day it will be around a real campfire in Sao Paulo. How about that?
Indeed.
Thank you. I am delighted to introduce everybody to our next host, and that is Isabella Silvella. She is the Financial Services Business Manager at the UK Government's Department for International Trade, the DIT, as we affectionately know them. And this is a great opportunity for me to thank Isabella and her team for all the support that they have given us and continue to give us when we've launched our OBE Familia in Brazil. And I know that they are currently helping many of our open banking excellence community in Brazil to launch into the UK. So already that amazing ecosystem is now coming over to the UK. Absolutely incredible. Isabella, we couldn't have done it without you. Please thank your team. So a big thank you, and over to you to introduce your panel. Thank you, Isabella.
Hi, Helen. Hi, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. I would like to thank OBE for the organization of this amazing event, and also for the invitation to host the first panel of the day. So just to briefly introduce myself, I'm Isabella Silva, Financial Services Business Development Manager based at the British Consulate in São Paulo. To start off, I would like to introduce you to our panelists who are going to give you a perspective of open banking, security, and privacy for consumers here in Brazil. The first person that I would like to introduce to you is Leandro Nóbrega, who is Open Banking and Open Finance Latin Operations Lead at Belvo. Also, Danilo Branco, CEO and founder at FinTechs, and finally, Thiago Aguiar at TechBen. With this great group of experts, we are going into a deep dive on open banking and on privacy, security, and what it means for the consumers. So I'm going to be asking some questions to our panelists so we can better understand this specific topic. So the first question is to Leandro. So Leandro, could you please talk a bit more about the key benefits for consumers when it comes to open banking and open finance?
Well, thanks, Isabella. First of all, thanks, Helen. So thank you, everyone from the Open Bank Excellence. It's a pleasure being here. Sure, great question. First, I'd like to start with the principles of the central bank. If we see the principles from the resolution published on 2020, was three principles. First, to promote innovation, to improve the financial system, and also to promote competition between the innovators. So I would say the key benefits, it's around these three principles here. And talking about from the customer perspective, we can say in different parts here. So starting with the extraction of information. So before we had, for example, like several relationships with different banks. Like I received salary in one bank, I had a credit product in another bank. So I needed to extract this in several different applications. So starting from this perspective, extracting data for myself, it was a challenger for me. So now with the open banking and open finance, sharing data and around these three principles that central bank is promoting in Brazil, we can see this improvement of the experience for the customers to extract data, to take better decisions around the finance. And also besides that, we have the opportunity to create several experiences to achieve different sectors. So here we have more than 17 million of people unbanked and more than 17 million people underbanked in Brazil that don't have access to these financial products. So when we are sharing this data through the institutions, through the innovators, we are promoting in Brazil new experiences, and we are supporting people who doesn't have access for the financial system here. And we can save lives with that. It's not just improve this experience for the customers, but saving lives for real.
Perfect. Thank you, Leandro. That's really helpful to understand and great to hear how the central bank pillars are linked to financial inclusion as well and the benefits to the clients here in Brazil. So talking about when open banking is fully implemented here in the country, and this next question is to Danilo. Danilo, when we're thinking about security and privacy regulations, what is currently in place for the consumers?
Okay, thank you, Isabella. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And the first of all, it's thinking that the central bank, different of all the other open banks in the world, the central bank have the role of the customer. That is the main point. So when the regulator take the customer as the point of view of the regulator, he puts to himself this vision. He puts the security and all the privacy that we have done until the past months, and the next months should be another types of security. That is a very good point that we see in the last panel when we talk about the interoperability. This is important that you have this type of communication of all actors inside of the open banking, but you have to do this with security. You have to regard that you needs to be secure because it's our data, it's our person. We are data. I don't know if it's clear that we have something like the sovereign identity. The sovereign identity is what defines us for the world, because we are nothing without data. That is very important to us. And this make that we have the regulator looking for this and secure all the data that is transpassing by all actors inside of the open banking. This type of security, me as a consumer, I know that I'm secured that is very important, because I have to be confident to work with the open finance. The main point here is not make institution talking with institutions, but is making the customer be part of these ecosystems. So this is one of the, I think is the pride to be here in Brazil. The open banking here in Brazil is the most one with, when we talk about security and privacy, and it's hard as a technology, but is very meaningful for our customers. That's true.
Thank you, Danilo. Good to understand from a consumer's point of view what is happening with our data as well. And my next question is linked to that, and this question is going to Thiago. So when we are talking about the data specifically, how and when does their personal data get used, and how is it stored? So when we are talking about this specific topic of the usage of data by the companies, how does it happen?
Hi, Isabella. Thank you again. Thank you for inviting Helen, also Leandro and Danilo. Thank you for this panel. This is an excellent topic, and a lot being said about security, and just hearing Danilo talk about it. I think first thing, I think Brazil is one of the most the countries that invest the most in security. And we have a huge, financial system and industry looking to that. So I think we have really strong financial system in terms of security and cybersecurity. I know that we here in TechBell, we take, really, great care of that. And we have like huge, amount of teams and investment in security and cyber security and all of those things. And but to talk about open banking, first of all, as Leandro said, the data, belongs to the customer, and he will share that only with his consent, and that's something important. It's not that we're doing open banking and then suddenly all the data is flowing around and people are collecting and using it, at free will. The banks will only collect data with your consent, with the customer's consent, and that data will be stored at the bank's, facility, the bank storage, all this vault. Of course, the banks can work with, tech companies to do data enrichment and all of those things, and that can be arranged, if the data is going to be stored at the bank or with this third party. But at the same time, nevertheless, if it is the third party, another tech company, the bank is the one that is responsible, at first for that data. So that's his job to secure the data, and to secure also, and to make sure and to audit the partner, the third party, the TPP, whatever, if he's doing a really good job, and if he's okay with the Brazilian GDPR. So that's the first thing. And that data will only be used when there's something that the customer wants to share that data for. So for instance, if I am applying for a loan with my bank, and I have, other, 5 different accounts in other banks, and it will be helpful for my bank to see and to understand my financial transactions, my history, my credit history, all of those data. So he will ask me if I want to share the data that I have stored in those other banks. So that only with that single purpose, and that's another thing that is important, it comes with the consent. The consent to use the data and then to reach the data is for a single purpose or for multiple purposes, but it has a purpose. It can be, just randomly. So the bank will use my data to make a credit history, score credit. So something that will be used for that specific service or product, that's the loan, for instance. So that's the time when bank will need that data. Of course, there can be banks will create things that will be they will need your data for not only for this time, but for multiple times, like a PFM, personal financial management. So the banks will need to see your data transactions from other banks, every month, every day or something like that. But that also has to come with a consent, for a specific purpose. So there always, it's going to have some product or service that you will want, that the bank can provide you. And if he has some deeper knowledge about your person or your data, it will be really helpful. So that's when the data will be used, and also how it will be stored. So,
that's great to hear. Thank you, Thiago. So you mentioned about consent, and I think that's a really interesting topic when we're thinking about the consumers allowing the banks to use their data. So my next question is going to Leandro, and is linked to consent. So Leandro, just in terms of this consent that the consumers provide, what does it mean in practice when a person allows the bank to use their data?
Good question, Isabel. First, when the person gives the consent, he's giving the consent to share some specific data. So the customer will see the scope of data he's allowing to share, and also the purpose of this consent. So the company that is getting this data to provide this experience, this frictionless experience, he's getting this data with explicit purpose, with explicit scope of data for this customer. So, and the consequence of this consent is all the benefits that we have been talking here. But basically, that's the idea of all the consent and all the legislation that we have around this. Also, very well aligned with the legislation that we have for the data protection, the law, the GDPR that we have in UK. We have the LGPD here in Brazil that says that we have the same principles around the respect of data and purpose, and also the expiration date of this consent. So the customer will be the owner of his data during the consent flow. The UX team did a great job here together in the central bank, taking care of this. They were focusing on giving to the customer this ownership of his data. And it's amazing. It's gonna be a change of culture, because usually we accept some terms and it's hidden there, the text. But now with this experience, the person will see, oh, this is the purpose. So I have the ownership of my data for the purpose that I want. And for me, this is a game changer for Brazil.
Yes, it's definitely a game changer, and I think it's going to give lots of opportunities for Brazilian clients to have more access to different products and services. So now coming back to Danilo, I have a question just in terms of the security protocols that we have here in Brazil. So Leandro mentioned a bit about the data protection legislation that we have in place. So I'm wondering, Danilo, if you see that open banking is going to make a difference in terms of how data protection is seen by the clients, but also by the financial institutions.
Well, that is a very good question, Isabella, because we are talking about something that Brazil is a pioneer. I can say this because here in Brazil, what we have done with the FAP and the CIBA, and also how we are embracing the FAP relying party to do this as an obligated one to be part of the open banking. So that is the main point, is how we protect this consent and now the information that is transmitted by all these participants. It's a huge movement. Maybe is, as Helen says, that we are a little tired, and this is true, because we are tired because we are doing something more than just what is reliable, but is what is innovation inside of these protocols. It is something that I can I see that is why I see open banking in Brazil as an example for the world. So this is something that should be shared and should be done by another regions. And using these protocols is something that I say that OpenID Foundation and all the guys of OpenID Foundation, we have a lot of these guys inside of the OB, and all of us is working as hard as we can to do this. And this is how we protected the privacy, and this is how we is the LGPD applied as a technology. That is the main point. We are protecting all the customers, and they can rely all inside of this open banking.
Great, thank you so much for this intel, Danilo. Really helpful to get your views on how that applies in practice for data protection as well. So Thiago, coming back to you for our final questions, it would be great to hear from you in terms of our wrap up, and if there's any thoughts that you think we should consider when we as customers are allowing our data to financial institutions here in Brazil, but also widely thinking about other jurisdictions.
All right. Yeah. Well, for the customers, of course, I think it's the same thing that we, the same type of, you have to be careful, and watch, of course, who you're dealing with, just make sure that you are in a secure location, secure, mobile app, website, whatever. The same type of care that you have to have with all the financials, things that you do. So open banking, it's here for the greater good for the consumers. And so just make sure that if you are solicited, if you are asked to share your data, that has to come from one of for us here, for the technical people, that we know the financial institutions or the participants of open banking are all of them, financial players, either banks or participants or payment institutions. But, of course, just be careful if someone is asking for your data, that's not a payment institution or a bank. You should do that through the official, channels that you are already connected with your bank. I think that's the main thing. And I think we are really, really excited, as Danilo said. We are saying that it's been a lot of work, and it will be a lot of work still. 2022, 2023, still we're gonna see a lot of technical work. But I think, in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, we're going to see, a whole different, when we have another campfire, hopefully in person, we're going to be talking about, how it's marvelous it's been done, and, the wealth it's been produced for everybody in Brazil.
That's excellent. Thank you, Thiago. So finally, I would like to thank for your contributions, Leandro, Danilo, Thiago. This has been a really helpful conversation and lots of intel that we were able to share with the audience. So great to have your views on this topic and to understand in more details how we can, how open banking can contribute and impact the clients. So it definitely means a great opportunity for everyone and for the financial institutions, but also for the consumers here in Brazil. A Edilene vai moderar o nosso próximo painel, então Edilene, por favor.
Perfeito. Muito obrigada, Isabela. Então, meu nome é Edilene Altemambur, para quem não me conhece, todo mundo me chama de Edi. Eu sou uma Managing Director aqui da Accenture, e eu sou responsável por pagamentos, toda a área de pagamentos para Growth Markets. Então, basicamente, América Latina, Ásia, Middle East, etc. Tá? E é um prazer imenso estar aqui com vocês hoje, moderando esse nosso painel aqui, onde nós vamos estar discutindo as principais oportunidades e também desafios, da implementação da fase 3 do Open Banking no Brasil, que é a fase de iniciação de pagamentos, tá? Então, vamos começar aqui pelas apresentações, dos participantes do painel. Então, nós temos hoje conosco Carlos Carneiro, que é o responsável pelas agendas de estratégia de Open Finance e pagamentos instantâneos no Itaú Unibanco. Temos também Stanislau Bassos, que acho que todo mundo chama de Stanis, então vou chamar de Stanis aqui também. Então, Stanis, que é o atual General Manager da Mastercard no Brasil. E temos também Janaína Thier, que é a chefe de divisão do Departamento de Regulação do Sistema Financeiro do Banco Central, que é o departamento que acompanha as implementações de Open Banking no Brasil. Então, muito bem-vindo a todos vocês, E vamos começar aqui, então, o nosso debate, aqui o nosso painel, falando sobre os aspectos regulatórios, tá? Então, a minha primeira pergunta vai para você, Janaína. Então, Janaína, você poderia aqui nos explicar um pouco mais em detalhe quais são os principais requisitos regulatórios dessa fase agora, né, de iniciação de pagamentos, em que parte da implementação que nós estamos e quais são os principais objetivos do Banco Central com essa fase aqui no Open Banking no Brasil?
Obrigada, Edilane, pela apresentação. Obrigada à organização do evento pelo convite. É muito bom para o Banco Central participar de iniciativas como essa, para a gente poder se colocar e colocar também os nossos objetivos para um público bastante amplo. Bom, eu queria começar falando um pouquinho sobre o quão importante é essa fase de iniciação de pagamentos no Open Banking para a gente aqui no Banco Central. Ela é um marco porque ela une dois projetos estratégicos aqui do banco, né? O Open Banking e o Pix. Os dois projetos com potencial altamente transformador, como a gente já tem visto, né? Explicando assim um pouquinho sobre o serviço de iniciação de pagamento, que é o tema dessa nossa sessão, desse nosso painel, ele é um serviço que tem como objetivo possibilitar a realização de pagamentos sem que o cliente tenha que acessar diretamente sua conta, ou seja, usando um terceiro, que é a instituição iniciadora de pagamento, né? Isso reduz fricções, isso torna a experiência de pagamento mais ágil, mais fácil, e também possibilita o surgimento de uma maior diversidade de modelos de negócio. Isso é sempre um objetivo perseguido pelo Banco Central, né? E aí a gente pode mencionar aqui, por exemplo, especialmente algumas oportunidades interessantes, especialmente em relação ao comércio eletrônico. Como já foi comentado no painel anterior, é claro que para o Banco Central é imprescindível que tudo isso ocorra sem nenhum prejuízo à segurança, né, aos aspectos de segurança típicos de um processo de pagamento, né? Então, por isso, para prestar esse serviço, as instituições elas têm que atender a uma série de requisitos regulamentares, né? O primeiro requisito que eu gostaria de colocar aqui para vocês é que as instituições que participam deste serviço, elas devem ser necessariamente instituições autorizadas pelo Banco Central. Esse acaba sendo um primeiro filtro, né? Tanto a instituição iniciadora da transação de pagamento, quanto a instituição em que o cliente possui a sua conta corrente, ou sua conta poupança, ou sua conta pré-paga, deve ser uma instituição autorizada, né? Esse é um primeiro ponto. Além disso, as instituições também devem ser participantes do PIX, o que significa que elas têm que ter passado por um processo de adesão, processo de homologação, por um processo de testes específicos deste arranjo instituído pelo Banco Central, que é o PIX. E aí, por fim, essas instituições elas devem implementar as APIs padronizadas desenvolvidas no âmbito do Open Banking, que são APIs que passam por uma série de certificações, essas certificações que também foram mencionadas no painel anterior. As instituições elas têm que ser aprovadas em testes funcionais, em testes de segurança, específicos para essa fase do Open Banking. E aí, é por meio dessas APIs, é por meio desses trilhos, né, vamos chamar assim, que as instituições se comunicam para viabilizar todo esse processo, né? Então, em termos de requisitos regulamentares, principalmente são esses. Agora, falando também um pouquinho em termos de implementação dessa fase, como é que a gente está hoje, né? Bom, um primeiro esclarecimento que eu acho importante trazer aqui para vocês é que a prestação do serviço de iniciação, ela é uma decisão estratégica de cada instituição, que decide se quer ou não atuar como iniciadora de pagamentos, né? Não há nenhuma obrigatoriedade por parte do regulador nesse sentido. Então, para esse serviço começar a ser oferecido, há essa dependência em relação ao interesse estratégico, ao modelo de negócio das instituições. O que a gente tem acompanhado nesse sentido é que algumas instituições já finalizaram todos esses testes necessários que eu mencionei, outras ainda estão em processo de finalização, até porque a gente sabe que a agenda do Open Banking aqui no Brasil é uma agenda bastante ousada, tem exigido muito das instituições, a gente reconhece isso, né, não só nessa fase, mas também nas outras fases. Mas, mesmo nesse contexto, a gente está sempre em contato com várias instituições, algumas nos procuram, outras a gente procura porque a gente quer entender os modelos, né? A gente está sempre em contato com o mercado, sempre muito próximos para conhecer os modelos que estão sendo desenhados e para entender também o que esperar, né? Quais as expectativas a gente e o próprio mercado já têm em relação a isso, né? Então, algumas dos nossos colegas painelistas aqui estão nessas instituições que eu estou mencionando, que já têm projetos nesse sentido, né? O que a gente tem visto, acho que daria para arriscar dizer que o serviço vai começar a ser ofertado para o público em geral de maneira mais presente, de maneira mais massiva, mais para o início do ano que vem, mais para fevereiro, eu diria, né? Mas as expectativas são altas. Aqui no Banco Central, nós acreditamos muito nesse projeto, essa etapa em especial, né, tem esse contato mais direto com o mundo de pagamentos, que é um mundo também sempre em mudança contínua, evolução contínua, um mundo muito dinâmico, e estamos ansiosos para ver as coisas se tangibilizarem.
Perfeito. Obrigada, Janeiro, pelas explicações. Super interessante entender a perspectiva, né, do Banco Central para essa fase aqui do Open Banking, que ela é tão importante, né? Agora eu vou voltar aqui para uma instituição financeira, né? Então, agora a minha pergunta vai para o Carlos, tá? Então, Carlos, na sua perspectiva, né, o que tem sido aí os principais desafios que as instituições participantes do Open Banking têm enfrentado e também quais têm sido os principais aprendizados nesse processo?
Perfeito, Edi. Boa tarde, pessoal. Enorme prazer estar aqui, participando desse painel de um tema assim tão quente, tão inovador. Falando sobre aprendizados e como que a gente tem visto essa agenda, inclusive olhando para o futuro. Primeiro que são projetos gigantes. Quando a gente pensa na iniciação de pagamento, ela faz parte, como bem comentada pela Janaína, de uma agenda do Open Banking, que ela tem diversas fases, e é o cruzamento dela com o Pix. Por ser um projeto gigante que envolve praticamente toda a organização, posso dizer, no Itaú existem mais de 500 pessoas envolvidas diretamente na implantação, na coordenação, na orquestração de todo esse processo. Ter um bom processo de coordenação é fundamental, justamente para as coisas acontecerem e acontecerem da melhor forma possível para os nossos clientes. Como comentado, inclusive no outro painel, esse processo ele tem que correr de uma forma segura, especialmente quando a gente está falando de um pagamento. Uma iniciação de pagamento, além dela de fato acontecer, afinal de contas, a pessoa que está pagando quer que a instituição que está recebendo de fato receba, ele tem que correr de uma forma segura, então todo o processo de autenticação do cliente é fundamental. Segundo aprendizado é que não basta cada um entregar a sua parte, não basta os bancos ou, enfim, as instituições que serão apenas iniciadores de pagamento entregarem a sua parte. Se cada um entregar somente a sua parte, as coisas não se conectam perfeitamente. Então, existe a necessidade de conversas bilaterais. E o mood dessas conversas tem sido muito positivo, eu tenho sentido o mercado como um todo muito imbuído em fazer acontecer o Open Banking, fazer acontecer a iniciação de pagamento. Isso tudo com o apoio do Bacen, que de fato tem participado de muitas conversas, inclusive algumas conosco, para tirar dúvidas, trocar figurinha, justamente para colocar esse processo em place o quanto antes. O terceiro aprendizado legal para compartilhar com vocês é: não se trata apenas de um projeto. Eu não posso tratar o Open Banking como um projeto que tem começo, meio e fim. Ele acaba sendo uma nova forma de fazer negócios. As informações que poderão ser compartilhadas, bem como a iniciação de pagamento, elas passarão a fazer parte do dia a dia dos negócios, dia a dia das pessoas, sejam eles pessoas físicas ou pessoas jurídicas. Então, é necessário times perenes para cuidar disso daí. Então, temos no Itaú Sim um time tanto para orquestrar como para olhar para toda essa estratégia e garantir que isso continuará basicamente para sempre. Quarto ponto, uma experiência do usuário impecável é mandatória. Eu sei que isso é até meio básico de dizer, mas para que as coisas aconteçam bem, a gente precisa sentar com os clientes finais e construir muitas das jornadas com eles, sobretudo essa jornada que tem potencial para ser super inovadora ou uma jornada com fricção, como comentado. Então, eu preciso ter uma jornada impecável. Como comentado pela Janaína, nós não tivemos ainda iniciações no mercado. A gente está confiante que realmente algumas iniciações aconteçam até o final do ano, mas de fato uma escalada a gente vê mais para frente. Eu diria que tem sido um processo como um todo de aprendizado constante e algo que a gente vai ter que ter muita atenção e continuar, no nosso caso, com essas centenas de pessoas envolvidas durante bastante tempo para fazer as coisas acontecerem bem.
Perfeito. Obrigada, Carlos. Nossa, é super valioso ouvir a perspectiva de um banco grande, assim, né, importante como o Itaú Unibanco nesse processo, né? Bom, agora eu vou mudar um pouquinho para falar de impactos usuários, né? E eu queria perguntar agora para o Stanis, né? Essa próxima pergunta é para o Stanis. Na sua opinião, quais vão ser os casos de uso mais prováveis de surgirem aqui nos próximos anos no Brasil, né? O que vocês estão vendo que as instituições estão se preparando para lançar aqui no futuro próximo?
Olá, boa tarde a todos. Obrigado, Edilane. Olá, Janaína. Olá, Carlos. Bom, acho que já foi colocado. Acho que primeiro vou começar pelo e-commerce, que sai bem fluido. Quando a gente imagina, por exemplo, uma carteira digital que hoje quer fazer um cash-in, ela tem que fazer, vou utilizar o Pix como exemplo, ela tem que seguir provavelmente 7 passos para conseguir completar esse cash-in. Então, o usuário vai lá, começa, está quase terminando a transação, gera o pagamento do Pix, faz um copy, entra na instituição dele bancária, faz a autenticação, faz um paste, termina isso, volta para o app original e olha e espera para que a operação seja completada. Então, tudo isso vai se transformar basicamente em 3 passos. Então, acho que o primeiro passo é o cash-in, a forma como a gente faz cash-in, que vai mudar. O segundo, que também é natural, os pagamentos in-app ou dentro das carteiras digitais também mudam. Mas o que eu acho que é interessante, e foi ressaltado tanto pela Janaína como pelo Carlos, é o que mais você consegue criar. Então, quando a gente imagina uma relação, por exemplo, B2B, o ERP, que hoje um ERP que tem que fazer conexão com múltiplos bancos para fazer múltiplos pagamentos, muitas vezes usando um RPA no meio do caminho, porque o processo não é necessariamente simples, vai conseguir fazer isso talvez de uma forma muito mais simplificada, utilizando um prestador de serviço de iniciação de pagamento, ou ele mesmo se tornando um prestador de serviço de iniciação de pagamento, dependendo do porte. Então, eu acho que abre uma possibilidade para que inúmeras empresas possam facilitar ou ter a facilitação dentro dos pagamentos. Obviamente, as grandes já têm um nível de automação importante, mas quando você vai para empresas médias e pequenas, isso não acontece, isso é extremamente manual. Então, a quantidade de ideias que nós conseguimos visualizar surgirem, seja no mundo do consumidor, seja para o mundo das pequenas e médias empresas ou para as grandes empresas, é amplo, é bem amplo.
Obrigada, Stanis. Não, realmente muitas mudanças por vir aqui no nosso mercado aqui de pagamentos, né? Vamos falar um pouquinho aí, então, do futuro. Então, vou perguntar aqui, pensando mais uma visão de longo prazo para o Carlos, quais são os próximos passos do serviço de iniciação de pagamentos, né? E quais oportunidades que vocês enxergam que o Open Banking pode trazer nos próximos anos?
Perfeito, vamos lá. É uma ótima pergunta que a gente poderia discorrer durante um bom tempo. Eu vou ser conciso aqui, citando os principais pontos. Primeira coisa, falar sobre iniciação de pagamento. Eu vejo, sim, iniciação de pagamento com potencial para entrar no dia a dia das pessoas, se consolidando efetivamente com mais uma forma de pagamento. Então, hoje, quando o cliente vai pagar, por exemplo, na jornada do e-commerce, ele pode pagar lá com cartão de crédito, cartão de débito, uma transferência bancária. Eu vejo, sim, a jornada de iniciação sendo uma jornada consolidada e com redução de fricção, que foi exatamente o ponto comentado aqui pelo Stanis. Hoje, quando você pensa no Pix, nessa jornada de 7 passos, pelas nossas avaliações, entre 30% a 40% das transações não chegam ao final, porque é uma transação com fricção. Então, à medida que a gente traz essa outra opção muito mais simples, a gente, inclusive, acaba ajudando os nossos clientes a venderem mais, porque é uma jornada mais simples, na qual, inclusive, quem está vendendo acaba ficando com a mercadoria menos tempo no estoque. Afinal de contas, você tem mais conversão da venda e tem uma liquidação imediata quando comparada com o boleto, cuja liquidação muitas vezes acontece depois de 2 dias, você acaba colocando uma validade mais longa. Vejo num futuro, olhando sobretudo para 2022, o público de partida sendo mais a pessoa física pagadora. Eu vejo que a adoção de PJs ela deve acontecer um pouco mais adiante, mas certamente acontecerá exatamente o mesmo fenômeno que a gente viu para o Pix. Inicialmente, o Pix se consolidou muito fortemente nas transferências entre pessoas físicas. Hoje, mais de 85% das transferências acontecem nessa modalidade, mas nós vemos nos últimos meses, sobretudo, uma escalada gigante das PJs, utilizando, sobretudo, olhando os números da Black Friday. Quais são as grandes evoluções? Primeiro, uma consolidação efetiva aí na jornada de e-commerce, como eu disse, como mais uma forma de pagar. Foi comentado pelo Stannis a questão do agregador, seja ele um ERP para pessoas jurídicas, mas eu queria citar um exemplo de pessoa física. Imagina você ver no agregador, seja ele dentro do seu banco ou um agregador puro, você vê todas as suas contas e através da iniciação de pagamento, você fazer o rebalanceamento das suas contas. Em que situação? Tenho conta no banco A e B, minha conta do banco B, que não é justamente o que você está acessando, vai ficar negativa daqui a 10 dias. Através do Open Banking, você verá isso, através dos seus lançamentos futuros, e consegue, através de um agregador, já deixar agendada uma iniciação de pagamento para lá. Então, sim, iniciação de pagamento ela vai poder acontecer no futuro, tanto online, como uma iniciação de pagamento agendada. Vejo também crédito embarcado nessa transação. Quero fazer um pagamento com iniciação de pagamento, mas não tenho recursos para, ou tenho parte dos recursos. Eu poderia ter um crédito embarcado ali. É uma outra grande oportunidade. Agora, imaginem assim, a experiência de você poder fazer um pagamento sem fricção, com crédito embarcado, para aquele recurso que você não tem, na jornada que você gostaria. Então, esse é o grande ponto. São os produtos financeiros na jornada do cliente, não o cliente tendo que se deslocar justamente para acessar esses produtos. Vejo, por último, a iniciação na recorrência de pagamentos. Então, isso é algo que também certamente será adotado. Eu acabei citando algumas possibilidades, mas naturalmente existe muito mais espaço para evolução, tanto a gente quanto os nossos concorrentes. Sim, todo esse movimento de inovação, ele é muito bom e quem acaba ganhando é sempre o cliente que vai ter acesso a melhores produtos e serviços para ele, aonde ele precisar.
Perfeito. Não, realmente muita coisa por vir ainda. E na perspectiva de vocês, Stannis e Janaína, vocês gostariam de adicionar aí algum ponto sobre que modelos que podem surgir aí mais no futuro, né, com o Open Banking, nessa parte de pagamentos?
O Carlos colocou bem a questão da personalização que você consegue ter. Ele falou das opções para você fazer transferência. Acho que talvez possa pensar no contexto de investimento, na gestão financeira, que também você passa a ter um ferramental incrível, seja para você estar pagando da conta que você quer, mas também você investindo no momento que você deseja. Uma personalização, eu acho que o Open Banking traz, não só na figura do iniciador de pagamento, mas como um todo, uma capacidade enorme, e conforme a gente for caminhando com o resto da agenda, tanto do Open Banking quanto do Pix, que a Janaína também comentou, as possibilidades são inúmeras, né? Então, quando a gente tiver o Pix garantido, como isso vai se combinar com iniciação de pagamento, é uma boa pergunta, e acho que abre para a gente inúmeras possibilidades.
Perfeito. Mais algum ponto, Janaína, que você queria colocar?
Bom, o Open Bank ele é um projeto mais de médio e longo prazo, né? E com ele a gente coloca trilhos para que a criatividade do mercado possa trabalhar. A gente já comentou sobre a entrada de novos instrumentos no ano que vem, então eu acho que a gente colocou aí o caminho. Agora a gente espera que o mercado use sua criatividade, a gente dá umas cutucadas às vezes também, e vamos ver, acho que temos muita coisa boa pela frente.
Perfeito. Bom, muito interessante, todos os pontos aqui trazidos por todos vocês. Eu acho que realmente os próximos anos aí da indústria financeira, e principalmente de pagamentos aqui, que é a minha área, promete ser muito emocionante. Eu sou suspeita para falar, né, essa é a minha vida aqui, pagamentos, mas os próximos anos prometem realmente ser muito emocionantes. Bom, infelizmente chegou ao fim, todos nós aqui acho que poderíamos ficar falando horas aqui sobre esse tema, né? Mas eu gostaria de agradecer a todos pelas contribuições, So now, Helen, thanks again and back to you.
Eddie, thank you. And let me just say thank you to your team for all their help in supporting the production of this campfire. Not only were they inspired, but the planning has been absolutely meticulous. So thank you. All that remains for me really is to thank our panel of experts who have generously shared their insights, and particularly at what I know is a very, very busy time. So thank you. And we would love to have you all back. And so says all the WhatsApp messages I've been receiving during this campfire. We will be posting this recording on social media. It will have subtitles. So please do spread the knowledge and do share. Okay. I would like to thank the absolutely amazing team at OBE. This is our last campfire of the year. We have grown this year at an absolutely phenomenal rate. I couldn't be prouder of them all. I think it's probably time that we parted Brazilian style. So that's certainly what we're going to be doing. But last of all, let me give a very big heartfelt thank you to our global community of now well over 15,000, nearly 20,000 banks, FinTechs, BigTechs, regulators and policymakers around the world. You told us that you wanted to be kept informed. And quite frankly, I can think of no better campfire than the one you just heard that really showcases the best of open banking in Brazil, the hottest place on the planet right now for open banking. So that all that remains for me is to say thank you again to everybody that has made this happen. Take care and thank you for your support. Obrigado até próxima. And hopefully over time my Portuguese will improve as well. Thank you.